Hey, how's it going, everyone? Thank you for joining me on a new episode of the Music Reviewer Podcast. My name's Josh, and thanks for joining me on a new episode of the album review series. This episode is going to be covering the latest album by Miley Cyrus titled Plastic Hearts. The album was released on November 27th of this year, so yeah, finally getting around to this album review. I've been wanting to review this album since its release. I probably should have gotten to the review a lot sooner, but with the midst of the election cycle and the drama and the anxiety, amongst other things, I kind of held off, and I'm finally kind of starting to get back into the swing of reviewing some more albums. But yeah, overall, this album was an interesting one. It's, in my opinion, a pivotal shift in Miley's discography. Quite a stark difference from the previous album as well. But anyways, before we get started, I just want to let everyone know that the latest album review was over the latest Bad Bunny album titled El Último Tour del Mundo. Really thought that album had some great moments on it. Overall, I thought it was good. If you're interested in listening to the review, please go ahead and stream that. You can find it on any streaming platform. Also, YouTube. If you like listening to the podcast there, go ahead and check us out on YouTube. But yeah, also check out that album. I would definitely recommend that album to most people, especially if you like reggaeton. And also the latest episode of Best and Worst Track of the Week dropped for the week of December 12th. That one was essentially a Bad Bunny album bomb episode, so you can get a Cliff Notes version of the album review. Also, I reviewed some stuff from Justin Bieber, also some Christmas tracks thrown in there too from like Carrie Underwood and Kelly Clarkson, stuff like that. But probably another similar week coming up, honestly, on Best and Worst Track of the Week, but we'll see here. Have yet to write that episode. But anyways, let's go ahead and start on this album review. Like I said earlier, this album was titled Plastic Hearts by Miley Cyrus. I believe this is episode 42. And just to briefly go over Miley, she's an American singer-songwriter, actress, and record producer, according to Wikipedia. That was born in Tennessee, born in 1992, I believe. According to Wikipedia, also, she is known for having a rasp in her voice. As if that's not quite obvious. I don't know why that's in her article. And interestingly enough, she's actually quite commercially successful. I think that might be something that's overlooked. Yes, she's been a huge pop artist most of her career, all of her career, really. I was kind of surprised to see that she's actually the best-selling female artist born in the 90s. That's quite the company there. You have people like Britney Spears in that company. She's also obtained the most Billboard 200 top 10 albums in the 21st century by a female artist. Another great accomplishment. She might be overtaken by someone at some point, but who knows how long that might be. And also her track Party in the USA was also certified diamond, which is a notable accomplishment as well. Apparently that's quite rare in terms of sales. And also she's proved to be quite versatile throughout her career, mainly due to the fact that she started out making teen pop. You know, she's a child actress slash musician. And then went on to making more risque type pop music, to then an experimental pop album later on produced by the Flaming Lips, and then some country sort of persona shift as well at some point. And she's also proven to be quite capable in making rock music at times, such as the many tracks on this album right here, Plastic Hearts, and some covers she's dabbled in along the way, such as Why'd You Only Call Me When You're High by the Arctic Monkeys. Interestingly enough, her most praised project thus far, according to Metacritic, is Plastic Hearts. Plastic Hearts also has earned her first Billboard rock chart placement as well, which, the rock charts are what they are at this point. Everyone says rock's dying. I'd say there's a good case against that, but for your first, nonetheless, I digress, but for your first sort of rock project and to be placed on that chart, yeah, her name's Miley Cyrus, but it kind of deserves some recognition. And in my opinion, yeah, we know she's successful, but it's really interesting when you look into a lot of the recognition she's gained over the years as well. For whatever it's worth, she was placed on Billboard's Best Artist of All Time list in 2019. And, you know, it's a Billboard chart. It's arbitrary. It's super subjective, but she's at least getting recognized as being one of the best artists of all time. I don't think many people, just off the street would tell you that Miley Cyrus is in that category, yet she has, some sort of, industry, I guess, backing for that sort of thing. And maybe she's overshadowed too by other modern pop divas such as Ariana Grande, Cardi B, Beyonce, and Taylor Swift. So I've seen that, especially as we progress late into the 2010s. You know, at some point, Ariana Grande was just the biggest thing ever, and then Cardi B took over the rap game on the female side for the most part, and Beyonce became the queen bee persona that she's praised to be. And of course, Taylor Swift is examined by the public eye for the most, you know, minuscule. And I don't really see Miley, for what it's worth, being quite put on the pedestal as high as some of these artists. And when you look at like the data or like the success, she pretty much can hang with any of these artists, in terms of like relevance and sales and, you know, stuff like that, and possibly fan base too. Personally, I've been familiar with Miley's music since I was probably middle school. Admittedly, I had the track See You Again on repeat on my iPod Classic around that time. And over the years, it's been interesting to see her growth. Her and I aren't that far apart in age either. She's a little bit older than me. And I can say, for the most part, I've usually have dismissed her as another generic pop star for most of my life, especially once she started getting into the mainstream chart-topping success in her tracks, such as Party of the USA and Wrecking Ball, among others. It also didn't help that while I was in the midst of college, she had released a pretty chaotic album titled Miley Cyrus and Her Dead Pets, where I confirmed my biases about her with a needle drop review, where I believe he gave her a 1 out of 0. I don't think, going back to that album, I enjoyed it. And granted, my taste and palette has changed since around 2015 when Miley Cyrus and Her Dead Pets was released. I've started listening to maybe Stranger Things since that time too. But nonetheless, I did not enjoy the album at the time, and my opinion of her was not helped by me being an avid follower of the needle drop for some reason. And either way, through all that negativity or that negative view, I still had a level of respect for Miley, especially mainly because I recognized her as a prominent vocal talent, and she seems to have always put effort into her work as well. It's something admirable. And at some point, I even found myself really liking her performance of Why'd You Only Call Me When You're High, from her MTV Unplugged performance of that Arctic Monkeys track, where I found a certain side of her that I saw that I ended up liking. I liked that she was able to take the track and make it almost better, and sing it with such prominence and power in her voice, and kind of do it justice. I've heard covers of that track. Granted, I don't think Queens of the Stone Age, when they covered it, were really trying to go for something all that great, but she kind of knocked it out of the park in comparison to their cover. And in retrospect, now in preparation for Plastic Hearts, I can kind of see some of that potential I saw from that performance maybe coming into fruition with Plastic Hearts. And just to also prepare myself, I went back to Younger Now, which was released in 2017, just to get a feel for what Miley's discography was around that time, what she was doing up to that point, because I honestly didn't listen to it probably. And for one, I really enjoyed the track, one of the earlier tracks on the track listing featuring Dolly Parton titled Rainbow Land. Thought it was a fun and sincere track. There's also some big moments, like on the chorus from Miss You So Much. That was a really great moment. The track also, I Would Die For You, also felt quite sincere as well. I liked that nature of the track. And the track, Thinkin' even sounds a little bit of a precursor to Plastic Hearts. The album felt a bit confused to me, though. Like it wasn't sure what it really wanted to do. Some of it felt like it wanted to be organic and rustic country. Some of it seemed like it wanted to be sanitary, adult alternative. Even in tracks like Bad Mood, I felt like it was trying to capitalize off of the end of the indie boom with an Imagine Dragons influence type track. But also I found on tracks like Love Someone, there was a nice groove, and overall it was a nice jam. But what did we get on Plastic Hearts in comparison to an album like Younger Now? I think overall Plastic Hearts is an improvement. And I don't know to what degree that improvement really measures up to. I think it's definitely commercially, you can make the argument that Plastic Heart kind of revitalized Miley Cyrus's career a little bit in the mainstream, because I don't think Younger Now was much of a success in that respect. But in terms of like a work of art, a body of work, I think there's certainly some more consistency and some better highlights on the album in comparison to Plastic Hearts. Starting from the track What the Fuck Do I Know? This track, one of the better tracks on the album. I liked it as an opener. Overall, the track has this sort of pop alt-rock nature to it. Once the track deviates from the intro material and into the pre-chorus, it definitely improves. And the chorus on here is just loud and energetic. The electric guitar sounds a bit pushed aside in the mix here, though, at times, but it kind of brings out Miley's powerful vocals on here, where we kind of see that vocal talent really come out. There's also some nice melodic embellishments that line up with Miley's vocals, too. The track also features some conversational guitar moments in the second verse as well that I dug. And the instrumental on this track is a lot more convincing in the instrumental breakdown than the later half. It's almost reminds me of something off of like Silent Alarm by Block Party. It's a good track. Unfortunately, the next track wasn't much of a highlight. I thought it kind of played more off of like some rock elements. Unfortunately, I don't think it was much of a highlight in the grand scheme of things. But in relation to the previous track, I felt like this track was a little bit more poppy, maybe a little bit more sanitary. I didn't quite find a highlight until the next track, the third one, Angels Like You, which really is more like a low light. This is probably one of the worst tracks on this album. There's a sort of ballad-like flavor to this. It's kind of has like this flavor of like 2000s like commercial rock bands like Hinder. It really reminds me of Lips of an Angel almost. Even like some late 2000s Daughtry stuff. Which, side note on that, what happened to Daughtry? Like, how did they get to the point they are now? Because I heard one of their tracks today on like XM Octane, and it was really weird hearing them in that context, doing like actual like riffs on their music. It sounds completely different to what like this track was doing, or what they're doing in the 2000s, like on this track. But anyways, back to Angels Like You. But overall, the track, it just sounds really bright, especially like in the instrumentation, like in the guitars. I think it's just a symptom of the production. We even get a string section to add to the texture of this track, but it just sounds a bit buried in the context of everything. There's even a build-up climatic area on the track that's just very corny, some unnecessarily reverby snare sounds, and this track is just very strange in the context of the album. I really wish it didn't make the chopping block. But luckily enough, the next track signals the great moment, or the great set of tracks on this album, where she just kills it, and the album really is exceptional, starting at Prisoner featuring Dua Lipa. This track, probably one of the better pop tracks I've heard this year. Some synth pop nature to it with like some 80s flair. pretty synth melodies all throughout. And Miley and Dua really sound great together on this track. The beat drop on this chorus hits quite well, and it just bops. The track is structured around this bass groove that gives the track a nice amount of energy, and lyrically the track maybe is oversimplified, but I still think it fits really well in the context of everything. And the track has like a funk, building off that bass line. It's very funky, syncopated, and it's really fitting and well performed. It's one of the best tracks on this album, and it just marks the start of like what I think is great on this album. Next is the track Gimme What I Want. I like the muddy and distorted bass line with industrial flavor on here. It's very Depeche Mode-like. I love the exposed anticipation from the pre-chorus on there as well. The track has a bit of futuristic flavor on this here too. It sounds a little bit industrial, with some also Depeche Mode-like guitar and percussion. And there's just a rhythmic nature on this track that gives the track a lot of energy. And also towards the end, we get like some 1975-like guitar riffs that I thought were interesting. The next track was also great as well, Night Crawling featuring Billy Idol. I love the new wave pop influence on this track. The pulse-like guiding eighth note bass line is a nice touch as well that really colors the track. And the song has a bit of a dark and mysterious nature to it that I really dig. Billy Idol surprisingly sounds really great on this track. He doesn't really sound aged. He works well with Miley, or works well off of Miley. And the introduction of the synth melody in the chorus is a great moment as well. I found it to be a highlight in this track, and this track to be a highlight. The next track, Midnight Sky, another great pop track. It got Best Track of the Week, 1 week's on Best and Worst Track of the Week back in August. And the track just grew and grew on me the more and more times I listened to it. I really haven't gotten tired of it. It's definitely a highlight on her discography. And that track kind of signals the end of like that solid chunk of 4 tracks where she just knocked it out of the park. And I really don't know, what was the choice to go into like something like the next track titled High. This definitely wasn't a bad track overall. I thought it was actually quite nice. It just felt like it probably could have been used on another Miley Cyrus type album, especially with the country flavor on here. It's very ballad-like as well, with like some concert hall like reverb, a very emotionally vulnerable as well, a strong vocal performance at that. And there's also some lush vocal harmony supporting her on here. Some auxiliary percussion though that sounds a little bit indistinct and mushy. I'd say that maybe one negative aspect of the track. And honestly, I feel like this track would fit nicely on country radio, like a modern country radio rotation. The track features some nice eerie synth tones in the intro. I found at first the percussion to be too knocky and dry, but the more and more I listened to the track, it made more sense. And I like her vocal delivery and how the aesthetic overall, how this marks how her aesthetic has changed, and just how angsty she sounds on here. And also the industrial dance pop style with some 80s synth wave and just the mechanical nature. The track has a lot of grit. Her voice has that signature rasp to it. It grooves as well. But Nashville is definitely missing out on a solid track if they don't pick this up. We'll say the track does have some interesting songwriting quirks where we get like a 2010s indie melodic vocal run where we get a lot of these whoa, 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 whoas, whoa, whoa, that kind of thing. But yeah, overall solid track. The next track, unfortunately, I didn't find to be a highlight at all. I thought it's probably one of the other, aside from Angels Like Me, Hate Me is probably one of the most sanitary things on this album. It's just completely safe, and there's really no grit or angst that Miley's really is known for on here. I felt like it could have made the chopping block as well. But we do get a nice highlight after that, Bad Karma featuring Joan Jett. We get some more country flavor on here with some reverby country hall vocal effect, and I dig the mysterious introduction on this track. The track has a lot of attitude to it as well, and much needed attitude. considering the last track. And the track developed nicely with this chugging eighth note rhythmic style, giving the track a lot of momentum. I will say the track does suffer a bit from some clunky and awkward transitions to the bridge. Not bad overall. The next track I found to be a highlight, Never Be Me. This kind of signals the end of the album, but it's another ballad. Some nice exposed vocal lines in the intro. Sincere and honest, it seems. The track seems to show some humility as well, with some 80s influence thrown in the aesthetics. Pretty dramatic sounding overall, but there are some moments where we get some sparkly synth embellishments thrown into the track that work. And the track tries to build up to like an emotional, climactic, point in the track. But I wasn't sure at first when I heard it how much of it was a sell. But as I listened to it, maybe like the sixth or seventh time, I thought it worked. It's an interesting track. And then we get kind of an oddball, but also not a terrible closing track, Golden G-String. It has this compound time signature on it with some warm bass tones on the track. Kind of reminds me of like a Billy Joel sort of charm on here in terms of songwriting, especially with the like keyboard melody and the anthemic nature. And I love the melodic buzzy synth melodies that are thrown in. The track also features some nice subdued exposed bridge that builds tension and maybe politically some interesting lyrical material or some lyrical material that's political. It's a nice track though. I didn't think it was one of the stronger tracks on the album, but I didn't hate it. And I'm kind of just torn overall on this album. I think when it hits, it hits, but when it misses, it completely misses. We get a good chunk of the album that feels concise and focused and just completely exceptional. But there's also inconsistencies in the sense where when this album features a track that really has nothing to do with like the overall context of the album, it really just kind of makes the experience a little clunky or confusing. Not to say this is a bad album. This is a good album. I just really wish Miley would have dug more into what she was really killing it at. Like Prisoner, Give Me What I Want, Night Crawling, Midnight Sky. Maybe a little bit on the opening track too. I would like to see maybe some more angsty rock stuff from her. What the Fuck Do I Know on that track. But the album really could have done without tracks like Plastic Hearts. Plastic Hearts wasn't the worst, but definitely Angels Like You I could have done without. Hate Me as well. Those two tracks really just had me scratching my head, and had those two tracks been replaced for something else, who knows what could have happened. This album could have been maybe incredible and rather than just being good. With that being said, I think I'm feeling more of like a 6 out of 10. Depending on the day, if I'm feeling really good, maybe a 7 out of 10. If I'm just hyped after listening to Night Crawling or Midnight Sky. But I don't think I'd say I'd enjoyed it on the same level as something like Bad Bunny's latest album or even the latest Benny album. Even though this was super close. And there's even tracks on here that I'd say hit just as well as anything like the bangers that were on Bad Bunny's album or Benny's album. Just a little torn on this album because this album really had some potential to it. But at this point, I'm probably just rambling. So, yeah, Miley Cyrus, Plastic Hearts. You'd probably like this if you're a Miley Cyrus fan overall. If you're looking for something that was just genre pushing or revolutional for rock, unfortunately, no, you're not going to get that on this album. Pop wise, maybe half of the album if you're a huge pop music fan. I think this album certainly has something for everyone if you give it the chance. So yeah, good album by Miley Cyrus on Plastic Hearts. If you stuck with me to the end of this review, thanks for listening. My name's John, and if you're enjoying this podcast on your respected podcast platform that you listen to, go ahead and subscribe if you can, and then also if you're on YouTube, leave some feedback, good or bad. I'd really appreciate that. Also, like and subscribe if you're on there. Take care of yourselves. I'll see y'all later.